In this video we're going to be learning how to add and subtract polynomials. In the last video I went over how to add polynomials using tiles, and if you found that to be useful, then you're more than welcome to use that method when you're adding polynomials like this, but for the sake of this video we're going to be doing it without the tiles. So adding and subtracting polynomials is very similar to just combining like terms. The idea is to simplify these polynomials, or to add or subtract them, we need to combine terms that are like each other. So that so for example, here we've got 6 terms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The idea is to try to combine ones that we can so that there's less terms, and then our polynomial would be simplified. I like to start by looking at the x squared terms, because technically to write a polynomial you should write it in order where the terms are going from the highest degree to the smallest. Now remember that degree means the value of the exponent, so in most cases you're dealing with x squared terms, x terms, and then constants, which have a degree of 0. So your x squared term would go first because it has the biggest exponent, then your x term, and finally your constant. So anyway, I like to start by looking at the x squared terms because that is going to be the first term in our final answer. So I'm going to first highlight my x squared terms. And notice, again, it's super important to include the symbol in front of the term, whether it's plus or minus. So we've got our minus 2x squared over there, and on this side we have a plus 3x squared. Okay, so when we combine these terms, we're going to look at the coefficients. We've got a minus 2, or negative 2, plus 3. I know that negative 2 plus 3 is positive 1. So I could write 1x squared, but it's just better to write x squared. Next, I'm going to look at our x terms. I have a plus 4x here and a plus 5x right beside it. That's an easy one. We would get 9x. And finally, I'm just getting a color here. We're going to add our constants, and I've got a 3 here and a minus 6. 3 minus 6 is negative 3, so when we combine those together in our final answer, we would be subtracting the 3 because we got a negative answer. So that is our simplified polynomial. Let's take a look at one more, and then we'll head on to some subtracting examples. Okay. (5x squared minus 1 plus 7 minus 7x squared minus 3x. So again, I'm going to start by combining my x squared terms. So let's figure out where those are. So we've got our 5x squared here, and then over here is a minus 7x squared. So looking at the coefficients, I'm going to do 5, or positive 5, minus 7. 5 minus 7 is negative 2. So we're going to have our first term as negative 2x squared. Okay, next I'm going to look at my x terms. And in this example, we've actually only got one x term, and that's over here, this minus 3x. And that's great when there's no other terms like it, because that's less work for us. That's actually just going to stay the same. So minus 3x doesn't change. Finally, we're going to look at our constants. We've got minus 1 and plus 7. So think of this as negative 1 plus 7, which is 6, positive 6. So we're going to be adding 6. So that is our simplified polynomial there. Next I'm going to give a couple subtraction examples. And they're actually the exact same two polynomials, except this time instead of being added, we are subtracting them. So you can see the difference here. These are now being subtracted instead of added. Now, there is one major difference between adding and subtracting polynomials, adding and subtracting polynomials. The difference is what happens to this second polynomial that's being subtracted. Something very important happens, and it happens because it is being subtracted. And since all of this polynomial is contained inside brackets, this minus symbol, or the subtraction symbol, actually affects every single term inside the brackets. And the reason that is, you might remember in grade 8 we learned something called the distributive property, where there's actually a minus or a negative 1 here. And what we're essentially doing is multiplying negative 1 with every single term inside the brackets. And when you multiply a number or anything with negative 1, all that does is it changes it from positive to negative or negative to positive. So, long story short, when we rewrite this question without the brackets, which is usually the good first step, you'll notice that the second polynomial, since it's being subtracted, every single term inside it is going to change signs. Whether if it's being subtracted, it becomes addition. If it's addition, it becomes subtraction. So this minus 7x squared actually becomes plus. And this minus 3x will change to a plus. And this 7 here was actually positive to begin with. And now you can see that it's being subtracted. So that switched as well. Now that we've written the problem without the brackets, it's essentially the exact same type of problem we've been doing before, where we're just combining like terms. So let's start with our x squared terms. We've got 5x squared plus 7x squared, and that will combine to get 12x squared, because 5 plus 7 is 12. Okay, next we're looking at our x terms. Again, there's only one here. It's plus 3x, so that stays the same since it's the only one. And then we have our constants. Negative 1 minus 7 would get us negative 8. So in our answer, it's going to be subtracted. So you can see we actually get a completely different answer than this one on the left. Every single term is completely different. And yeah, so then the reason is because the fact that this second polynomial is being subtracted, they all switched from positive to negative or negative to positive. Let's take a look at one more example, just to be clear on that. Okay, so we've got 3 minus 2x squared plus 4x minus 5x plus 3x squared minus 6. So, very first step we need to do is rewrite this problem without the brackets. Since our first polynomial here doesn't have a minus or a negative symbol in front of it, it's going to stay the same. So we've got 3 minus 2x squared plus 4x. Now this one is going to change. This 5x becomes minus 5x. This plus 3x squared is going to switch to minus 3x squared. And our minus 6 becomes plus 6. Okay, now that we've got that done with, we're going to combine our like terms. Starting with our x squareds, we've got a minus 2x squared minus 3x squared. Negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. So our first term is negative 5x squared. Next, we've got look at our x terms. We've got positive 4x minus 5x. Positive 4 minus 5 is negative 1, so we'll be subtracting 1x, or we could just write it as x. And finally, our constants, 3 plus 6, which is easy, that just gets us plus 9, or positive 9. Okay, and then that would be our answer to that problem. That's it for this video. Next up, I'll be going over multiplying and dividing.